Hi, this is Khalil Guliwala. Welcome to another episode of the BIPOC Manager Podcast. In today's episode, I'm very excited to have Sangeeta Parsarati with us. Sangeeta is a nervous system coach for Indian women execs. She's a first generation British Asian, born and raised in India, educated and worked in the US. Her academic credentials are from BITS Pilani, University of Cincinnati, UPenn, Harvard, and MIT. And she's transitioned from a successful strategy consultant to a somatic experiencing practitioner focusing on attachment and power wounds. Sangeeta, please.
Michael, it's great to be here. I know it's been a long time coming, so very glad to be a part of this.
Amazing, Sagia. So before we start, do you want me to talk a little bit of what that kind of kind of nervous coaching you do and what that's on what that's involved?
Yes, yes. People look at nervous system coaching, it's like, what is that? So essentially, when we look at personal growth or coaching, or even therapy in general, broadly speaking, mentorship, personal growth tends to be very mind focused and brain focused and almost body phobic, as if the body doesn't exist and it's a passive participant in the human experience and that it's all up here. The reality is that we are sensing creatures first and feeling creatures second and thinking creatures third. That's just the way the brain and body work. So there's a whole branch of personal growth, healing, therapy, coaching, whatever you call it, in the spectrum called somatics, which is not mindfulness, but it works with the implicit patterns stored in our nervous system as sensations, movement, sequences, etc. And that when we can befriend this biology and the predictable order in which they're supposed to be completed, we can unlock a whole different level of understanding of the human psyche and growth. So I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner. I quit my strategic consulting job and I actually, after the birth of my children, became a birth doula. And I've supported births and been in the birth room. And that's the focus on early attachment and how our earliest ways in which our neurons and nervous system is wired shows up in all these ways as we become adults. And so when we do this, we're able to touch upon a level that a lot of these other things miss. So that's what I do. So that's what a nervous system coach does. So in my work, the body is an essential participant in the whole process. And so it's not just cognitive.
Amazing. That was actually one of the reasons why I reached out to you. Because I feel like as someone who is an immigrant and moved here, there's an element of the body that we ignore or move apart. The question I'd like to ask you is in the same way, when people move to a new country, culture, geography, a lot of time cuisine has a different impact on the nervous system of a human being. Can you share perspectives on the impact in terms of their ability to play and find joy?
Yes. So when we talk about immigration, I think there are different kinds of immigration, different reasons why people move. And if we take this example of South Asians moving to global north, specifically America and Europe, right? It's a very specific kind of that is not physical. It involves and things that are mind based and brain based. Largely, I mean, this is a right. And you so there's that, and then rerouting our bodies and brains from our home, whatever that might be, and rerouting significant event in the nervous system, no matter how much of choice or autonomy there is. What I mean by that is, even if it's not like a refugee kind of situation, even if you are headhunted to go set up this amazing thing, and assume you're not moving for survival, right? And I think even a wide range of us really move for better economic opportunity, better, lifestyle, etc. So it is aspirational. There is so when we do that, significant event on the nervous system because beings are relational. A lot of how we show up in the world involves co-regulation, finding community, and when we uproot, there is a process of having to reroute ourselves and situate ourselves in a whole different context. And so that is a significant event in the nervous system. And then if you look at immigration, there's always this survival anxiety that gets added on in terms of I'm not just going there for a temporary education. Most of us come here because we want a job and families and citizenship, right? And so it's a very real survival energy that goes on for, depending on which country you migrate to. In take, best case is I think 5 to 7 years, like you move as a student, for example, but case 20, 25, 30 years, right? Or more, in which country and what your situation is. And there's a lot at stake. There is a definite pressure to, and there's a very definite pressure to also thrive. And so what this level of stress is not acute, it's chronic, right? Because it's not that say you a tough quarter at work. Now that's a 3 month thing, and it goes away, and then your body returns to a base level of if you've lived in this kind of survival based hypervigilance for years, then that takes a significant amount out of your nervous system. This is a nervous system that, for example, on all the time is hypervigilant, updating LinkedIn, 1 foot out the door, always talking to recruiters, always having plan A, plan B, plan C, relax. We really have struggles. It's almost like I close my eyes, I'm going to miss it. In that level of, and of course, what happens from a nervous system perspective is this is a nervous system that then is not wired for connection and safety, because when we're in this constant fight, flight, or freeze responses, the hypervigilance constantly on, and then because it gets too much and we kind of down and doom scroll and all of that, and then we keep yo-yoing between that. This is hormonally costly, this is metabolically costly, because the body is not designed to live like that for years. And so it has a definite impact on we show up. Many of us can remember, let's say, our mothers or even fathers, right? Take a bullet for us, and in case of an emergency, they're the first people we'll call. However, you might really struggle to spontaneous, funny, silly bonding experiences. So yeah, I think happens then is this in this overworked nervous system, because remember that for us to play and rest, the body needs to feel safe. Only when the nervous system can land that we have these states, play and rest, available to us. So the way this shows up is play as a nervous system state is essential for creativity. It is essential for community, spontaneity, right? And so of us may aspire to be entrepreneurs, but can really struggle with that. There are other issues, visa, etc. But even things being equal, because innovate, it requires a certain basic level of safety in the body to experiment and play. This can, for example, even if you're doing a side hustle or entrepreneurship and you run into issues, in a resilient nervous system, we bounce back, right, and continue. But resilience takes a hit. Everything feels like a personal failure. And therefore, it's like, oops, this is maybe not for me. So I'm going to give it up and not try new things like that. That's how play can show up in career, and then play in terms of taking calculated risks, I suppose, even in personal life, right? In terms of finding intimacy, or even in parenting and things like that. So
Sangeeta, like your response, I feel like you have captured decades of that experience within minutes. Because everything I know, for me, my friends, it's always that sense of being constantly almost scared and anxious. It comes to visa status. Once you get the citizen status, during that period, you have the survival job. You're taking any job, you're putting up with harassment, discrimination, because you want to keep everybody safe. And there's no time for fun. You feel almost bad to have fun or to have joy. And we're also living in this system of capitalism, which is focused on productivity. And you see the other layer of the sandwich is, in some sense, the very bodies, which we know are treated a bit differently based on our colors, our accents. This retreat into the mind, this retreat into hiding, in some sense, because it's the mind that is producing the value. The mind is producing the work as whatever job that is. And so it's so, if I use the word, it's almost an escape from the body, because the body, in some sense, is this signal or source of being treated as different as the other. This complete retreat in the mind, which then shows up as burnout, anxiety, problems of family, and joys. I want to call that out. Like a few minutes, you have captured like in a very deep way that I have not heard of. This just what that experience is from that body, mind, soul, and joy. They can ask you, I would love to know, how did you unravel all of this? Because I would love to know that journey of yours.
Yeah, I grew up in a very so many layers of this dissociation with the body, right? I think we tapped on something very here. Um, Background to all of this is also that we have lived in this dichotomy where the mind is somehow superior to the body, right? And it's because the body is temporal, and this is a socio-religious cultural story, right? Like that the body is temporary and the soul is permanent. So many sort of sits you down to tell you this stuff, but it's kind of right. So the I think um, grow up in environments that are predicated on a lot of dissociation, right? So it's like powering through, through fatigue and orientation and achievement as the holy grail. And in order for us to do achieve to belong, in order for us to do that, we very early on, I think we grow up in a lot of sort of with dissociating from the body, and we get very used to being in the brain. I think that split happens very early on. And again, now this is from a professional point of view, but personally, I think it's this nagging sense that something's missing for me, and I had powered through that for many years because it was very easy to retreat to the intellect. It was very easy to intellectualize pain. It was very easy to, this is something that most of your viewers can relate to. In a psychology enthusiast, so the books, the podcasts, the even therapy, right? I don't think gets to this level because, like I said, I think historically this is changing now. But personal growth also was very predicated on the intellect or the brain over the body, right? And that the body, and sometimes it would trigger further dissociation because the brain and intellectualizing and connecting the dots is something that easy, right? But then the triggers would still come, and I would feel like a failure because it's like, hey, I am trying so hard. Like, I made personal growth another, to achieve or to, through, and I would be doing the work, right? But I didn't know that I wasn't really doing the work, but I thought I was doing. And then also that you think that it's got to be hard, like you think that you're not allowed to make it simple, and you're not allowed to make it work for you, right? So that unease was there, and that search, I think somewhere there was a seeker. And for me, I think the huge thing, and again, this is something that a lot of us can relate to, is parenting happened, and then the process of my own pregnancy, and so we had hired a doula ourselves and wanted to have a less interventional birth. We were in the UK at that time. And then to do that, I had to unlearn fear because everything I was told about the human body was that it was defective and it was fit for nothing, and that I couldn't birth a child without heavy medical intervention because I had no clue. I hadn't trusted my body ever before, or even connected with my body at all, right? And so it's like, what is this? But to have this beautiful birth that I wanted, I really had to face all my fears. It was very scary to get in touch with my body, right? Because it's a very alien feeling for most of us because we're so used to being in the brain. And then birth is the opposite of that because it's requiring you to like switch off your thinking brain and go into a very intuitive place. And that was not a place that I was used to, and that was scary. And I think the start of it. And then once you do that, like, okay, told me about this. And then, yeah, kickstarted a whole journey of all of this. And then, education, training, mentorship later, building my own body of work. A lot of this was not tailor-made for the immigrant experience or the female nervous system, which is very different. And, cultural aspects of it shows up in the nervous system. So I had to go out and my own body of work, and what I offer now.
Wow, that's incredible because I mean it's not stuff that you can, and again, that classical, again, South Asian immigrants, like, where's that book? And it's
Where's
like not about actually you and sometimes who you are and getting comfortable in that very thing you've denied for so long. Sangeeta, before you wrap, I want to say, is there anything that you'd like to mention, anything that you'd like to focus on?
Yeah, this is a really good point, actually. There's the book.
Yeah.
That was, so I have two daughters, and for my first daughter's birth, because this whole thing was so alien to me, right? My husband, in very typical, I think, the South Asian, where's the book fashion, we were almost over prepared. Like, okay, let's take all the classes, let's take all the workshops, let's go through all the research, make a birth plan and all of that.
Yeah.
And I think you sort of was overdoing it to the point where when it push came to shove, it wasn't really like embodied as much, right? Because the fear and the extra layers. But that I think it was still a beautiful birth. It was all very, very new. And then the second time around, just surrendered to it. I think it was easier to sort of surrender to it and resist the urge to again go to the books and the theory and all the data. And it's like, okay, I didn't focus on the outcome. So the first time around wasn't exactly the birth that we went to the hospital and she was born in the hospital, and very true achievement perfectionism based upbringing. I felt like a failure, and then ourselves credit for doing all of that and having a healthy baby. This also, I think, preoccupation with like the outcome. And then second time around, all that unlearning happened. And then second time around, I just surrendered to the process, and wherever it took us, it was fine. And then it's a very beautiful home birth. The second one was born in my living room, and had the midwives and doulas and that. So I think the story of how all of the where's the book mentality happened through experiences, I think.
Amazing, Sangeeta. So if anyone wants to kind of touch with you, learn more about you, what's the best way they could do that?
I'm on sangparts.com. My website, have a look. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Sangeeta Parthasarathy on LinkedIn. You can get in touch with me there. Yeah, Instagram, sang_part. Google Sangeeta Parthasarathy and you'll find me. Nervous system coach, and then you'll find me.
Amazing, Sangeeta. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you. Pleasure.